It is Thursday afternoon in Switzerland and it's Space Café UK time. Our brand new first Space Café UK will begin soon. As always, we appreciate your participation and ongoing feedback. We will learn and improve based on your words. I'm Thorsten Kriening, the publisher of SpaceWatch.Global. We are a Switzerland-based online platform for information in and about space and new space activities in a geopolitical context. With Laurie Scott, Andrew Ball, Ewan Lawrenson of neuco, we found great friends, or we have great friends, and a wonderful host team for our outreach in the United Kingdom. I know many of you are already familiar with our website, our bi-weekly and daily newsletters, and the Space Café podcast. We also keep our fan shop open online for you to support us actively to become a Space Watcher. The Edition 1 has cool items for you, your friends, and the ones you love, and your support is needed to keep our work alive, and we do that for you. If you have missed any of our previous web talks, we have an archive on our website in the event section and on YouTube. We will host our Space Café UK live regularly, and with that, my job is done, and I like to hand over to your hosts today in Brighton, if I'm not... Is that correct? Yeah, it is.
That's correct, yep.
Yeah. At least it's England for us. I mean, coming from Europe, that's all good. So today, Laurie, Ian, Andrew, over to you. And with that, I'm out. See you later.
Thanks a lot, Thorsten, and really appreciate SpaceWatch.Global to give us a chance to host today. So, hello everybody. Welcome to the first edition of the UK Space Cafe. Today, like Thorsten said, it's me, Laurie Scott, alongside my colleagues Ewan Lawrenson and Andrew Ball here at neuco. And we're delighted to be joined by Ian Jones, the CEO of Goonhilly Earth Station. So Goonhilly is the oldest satellite Earth station in England and home to Arthur, built to receive the signal from Telstar, the first communication satellite. Ian Jones is also chairman of Satellite Applications Catapult and the CEO of Goonhilly Earth Station. He's seen as one of the UK senior experts in the satellite and space industry. Today, we'll be discussing the future of the UK market and what sort of involves for going on in the future. Ian, welcome to the first UK Space Cafe and delighted to have you on board.
Thanks, Laurie. It's great to be here, and it's great to be here on a windy day, actually, in Goonhilly.
And you've got a great background as well.
Yes, absolutely. There's Goonhilly 6 behind me, and not sure what Goonhilly 6 is doing quite today. Maybe listening in on Mars, but we'll certainly be able to talk about that later.
Fantastic. Ian, so, right now there's a considerable buzz in the UK space industry. Lots of exciting new players, loads of new sort of innovative projects out there now. But before we got started, what we'd like to do is sort of take you back to the beginning and sort of understand how and why you got into the space industry.
Yeah, well, I'm an electronics engineer, and so I studied electronics at Leeds. My final year, I had a great professor who was an expert on cracking the GPS codes of the Russian GLONASS satellites, and he was quite a character. He was a Scottish professor with a very dry sense of humour, and he was my sort of mentor, and so I did a project on designing a receiver for weather satellites and some tracking software, and that's how I got started. Found it fascinating, and then after I graduated, I applied for a job actually at British Telecom, and I guess because of my background, my dissertation, I got put into a satellite communications group at the research labs. And so that's how I started.
Fantastic. Excellent. And talk us through, how did you sort of rise into where you are right now as the CEO? Talk us through your sort of career.
So one of the interesting things was the first job interview I had was at the BBC. And as an electronics engineer in the BBC, they wanted me to twiddle the dials and set the colour. So that wasn't very interested in that. And so on the way out of the interview, rather disgruntled, they took me through a back room, and I said, "Oh, this looks like the interesting stuff that I'm really interested in." It was all the transmission equipment, and they said, "Oh, we don't deal with that. That's all a contract with British Telecom does." So that was my very next thing. I applied for a job at British Telecom and got at the research labs. But what I really wanted to do was use my design engineering skills. So whilst I was at the research labs, I did manage to do some design on the early Inmarsat digital systems, the Inmarsat C system. But one of the contractors came along and he had some very interesting equipment. And I thought, oh, that looks really interesting. That's what I want to do. So I used the opportunity to say, you don't have any jobs going, do you? That was at the time a small company based in Yorkshire with about, I think, 15, 20 employees. And I joined that company. And from there, I was involved in designing the modem for the Inmarsat Skyphone system, and which was really, really interesting, getting involved in digital processing and really seeing a small company grow from 20 odd people to 120 people. Was a very interesting experience. Not only was I doing design engineering, but on that sort of size scale up, you have to do all of the different tasks, from sweeping the floors to doing marketing and development and technical authoring, and it was just such a great experience. And that company then got bought out, became Santi, and so I'd sort of risen up through the ranks from designer to sort of head of hardware, and then a bit on the business development side. And I was then involved in business development in Ferranti on the space side of things. But really, I was hankering to set up my own company. My dad, when I was a child, had set his own company up in the garage business, and I'd sort of had this bug of wanting to be an entrepreneur. So with a colleague at Ferranti, we decided to take the plunge. There was an opportunity, actually, when the third generation of Inmarsat satellites were being built, to renew equipment in all of the ground stations around the world, and we had a particular specialism. So we approached another company in the industry and suggested that we might partner with them. They put up some initial cash. And we set up a company called Orbit Research. And so I was CEO of Orbit Research, a 2-person company. And it's really tough being in a startup. You spend a lot of time, developing new IP, developing new products, trying to compete in the market, and no sooner have you got a new product and new development than someone bigger comes along and steals your idea or has better results than sell things. So after several years in Orbit Research, I was really looking for a way to do something different. And in 2007, British Telecom had decided to dispose of Goonhilly, actually, and close it down. And so I found out about it. And so already being an entrepreneur, this was a mad, crazy thing to do, to try and rescue people from being closed down. But I saw an opportunity to do something different. And actually, by acquiring Goonhilly, no longer could anybody take that IP, that precious IP, away from me and from the company. And so it sort of became a quest to try and do this, and it was a very difficult quest. But we started negotiating with BT in 2008, and by 2011, 3 years later, we signed an option agreement to buy the site here. But it was an option to buy it within 3 years. So we started off by leasing the antennas. And had 3 years ready to build the business, which we were able to do. And then we acquired the site. We bought the site from BT in 2014.
Fascinating, brilliant. And look, I mean, what a journey, and where you are right now. I mean, if you look at the UK space industry right now, like we said, there's a huge buzz, and we've seen many press releases around Goonhilly. You've got the sort of Cornwall and Virgin Orbit partnership. You've got the sort of UK civil space programs, and then more recently, I know Torsten touched on it, we've got Goonhilly, and there's Moonlight. So, are you able to sort of tell the audience a little bit more about this?
Yes, indeed. Well, it was just announced in a press conference by the European Space Agency today. Moonlight is a program to provide communications and navigation around the moon. Increasingly now that there are a number of space agencies and private organisations that are starting to announce that they're going to be going to the moon in the next few years. And particularly, I think, for the smaller operators, but having the ability to communicate and navigate once you're at the moon is really vital. And but it's a difficult enough link budget to get the communications link to low Earth orbit from a small satellite. When you go to the moon's distance, then it becomes almost impossible from a very small spacecraft. So the idea of having a communications relay system was born. It was a program that we proposed to the European Space Agency along with Surrey Satellites. And that's led to a project called the Lunar Pathfinder. And that's the sort of precursor then to a much larger program of sort of sending a series of spacecraft up to the moon, and that's the Moonlight program. So the European Space Agency had a competition, and Goonhilly is in one of the chosen consortia that will be providing this, and our consortium is led by Surrey Satellites.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations, amazing news, and great timing. So hot off the press. So I'm now going to hand you over to Andrew, who I know is probably very excited about that, and we want to continue to talk about the industry. So Andrew, over to you.
Definitely. Look, thanks very much, Laurie and Ian. Just to echo what Laurie and Torsten have said, it's absolutely fantastic to have you with us today. And look, even more fantastic to hear, just how involved the UK has been, is, and seems to continue to be in the global efforts for space exploration. Looking at things, I guess, from a slightly more commercial perspective at the moment. As Laurie said, you're certainly seen as one of the, the forerunning kind of information, gurus of the industry. A lot has been made about the UK's commitment, to getting 10% of the overall space economy spent here in the UK. It's one of those things that you hear the commitment and never really hear too many updates on. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are then on, the current state of the UK space industry and how close we are to achieving that goal of gaining that 10% of the global space economy.
Yes, well, actually, I think yesterday or the day before, the latest report, The Size and Health of the UK Space Industry, was published. So you'll be able to do a search for that, Size and Health of the UK Space Sector. That was reporting on data from pre-COVID years, but it's showing growth, but I think a bit of a slowing growth, and there has to be some aspect of the Brexit that situation that we've gone through has impacted, I think, a little bit on that slowing growth. And it'll be interesting to see what's happened in the last 18 months or so with COVID. Certainly, we have had a very busy time here at Goonhilly during the last 18 months, even though it's been very disruptive in terms of individuals and just ways of working. But I think we found new ways of working and perhaps more efficient ways of working. And there have been problems, but everybody's worked hard to get around those problems. And I think in general, people have just had to find ways to keep businesses going. And so in general, people have. I think that this mantra that the UK has had really for over a decade now of wanting to get to 10% of the global space turnover by 2030 has been a challenge to the UK, but it's also been a challenge to the rest of the world as well, and many other space agencies and other countries and other companies have listened to the UK's challenge in a sense, said, yeah, we'll also do that. So all 10% of the global space sector. But I think it's great to have a challenge. And obviously, in each individual company, we sort of live by our own challenges. But no, it's been quite an amazing journey, and it's been really interesting that we have had a number of changes of government in the last 2 years. But actually, each government has picked up the commitment to space. And there's been a really good dialogue between industry, academia and government, and that's continuing, and there are new initiatives coming through. So I think that's really helpful in the industry. But it's all, the space industry is just totally delightful in that it's an international industry. We get to work across with colleagues from many countries, and I think that's one of the best aspects of the industry, to be honest.
I couldn't agree with you more, and interesting that you did mention Brexit. Quick, I guess, a side question: do you think that situations like Brexit have hampered international collaboration, or do you think that it's actually kind of spurred a lot of that on, that that despite some of these sort of political things that bleed into our industry, that fostering of collaboration between our nations for the growth of the international space industry, and not just the industry but the exploration that it provides, has it hampered and hindered, or do you think it's kind of brought some of those bonds closer together?
Yes, is the easy answer. So it's messed a lot of things up, but in so doing, we're all bright people and we all want to get on with things. And there are, and I guess that was the point in many people's minds, wasn't it, to shake things up. And when that happens, it opens up opportunities, and opportunities are for all of us to try and seize and to try and work the sort of best way around. So I think that's happened. It's certainly it's made people think more, and it's made life difficult in areas, but as I say, there's new things that we can do.
Well, everyone always says space is hard, and nothing's going to make it any easier. As an industry, we're fond of overcoming challenges, which is good to see that that's continuing to happen. And over the last few years, we've certainly seen the development of space and satellite technology sort of almost quicken pace exponentially. And certainly it's great that despite the changes in government, we've seen support for that continue over here. And just to that development. For example, when I joined the industry, the thought of reusable rockets was, a pie in the sky idea, and it almost seems now that rockets are being reflown sort of every week, if not even every day. So, look, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of this has also been from the entrance of private commercial players into the market, the advent of this kind of new space industry. And it's really great to see so much of that seeming to be centered here in the UK. Companies like Goonhilly, of course, but also Arkit, who recently valued at just over $1 billion. OneWeb, all the development and companies setting themselves up at the Harwell site in Oxford. And as far as some of these new commercial players, that exist here in the UK, what do you think are some of the most exciting technological developments being provided by these companies, here in the UK?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there is all of this new breadth of development that's happening. Of course, somebody has to be the customer ultimately, and so you sort of have to remember that the industry is split really into two, and the two halves are the commercial satellite industry that's been around for decades. And to be honest, hasn't changed a huge amount. Okay, maybe it's moved from providing TV and trunk data communications to start moving into providing direct to premises internet connectivity and mobile communications. But that's the sort of the commercial part of the industry that runs entirely separately, apart from regulation from government. And then you've got the rest of everything else, which until now, until a couple of years ago, has been funded by governments, by space agencies. So space exploration, going off to the moon and Mars and places, but also largely Earth observation, weather forecasting, looking after the planet has been the realm of government interest. Now, what we're starting to see, particularly with low orbiting satellites, is that there are new companies coming along like Planet, who see this as a commercial business model, and they're making that commercial business model work. And then you're getting the sort of the bigger players that are interested in going beyond the traditional commercial satcom into exploration and mining and all of those sorts of things. So I think the exciting thing in the UK is the fact that we've got really great research going on in universities, and we've got people coming along into the industry with new knowledge and new excitement about sort of getting involved and developing new products in this market. I think that's quite amazing. The difficult part is making the business case close, of course, but that's where we are.
Perfect. And I think it's reflected in, especially when I speak to a lot of my friends when I first started in the industry. When I said I work in the space industry, a lot of people were sort of, well, okay. But now space seems to be cool again. And it does seem to be, people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, bringing these sort of commercial aims and really challenging that, what was previously the realm of governments only, really does sort of quicken innovation and is kind of making it exciting again. And look, last question from me, just for the moment. What opportunities do you see then for the growth of the space industry here in the UK? Are there any particular areas that you think are not being catered for, that the development is lacking in, that the UK can really kind of step up and sort of fill that gap globally?
I think so. I think there are opportunities across the board now, and I would say nothing's off the table. I would say that the UK has a particular sort of excellence in communication and in the sort of the electronics and software programming around that. One of the areas that we're really looking to sort of accelerate our capability in is that the whole area of it's sort of how to put it. coming from a sort of digital signal processing world myself, and sort of steeped in digital electronics, all of that area of digital communications and cybersecurity and communication systems there are skills which are very transferable between different areas, and a lot of the techniques and technology that are involved in signal processing we now see popping up in AI and machine learning. So as we move towards sort of concepts of digital twins and sort of simulating environments and looking at how we can improve the environment by examining the data coming from space, there are a lot of skills that if you sort of develop them in one area, then you can apply those in other areas. So I think that's particularly an area that we can really develop products and young people coming out of university with electronics and digital and comms skills will be in great demand.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you very much for that. And hopefully that's kind of a nice segue into our next section, focusing a little bit more on the future. So, Laurie, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. So, Ian, I mean, well, you've touched on sort of the future and what we sort of expect to see over the next few years. I want to talk about sort of the UK spaceport, because we hear a lot about it. We know there's sort of several sites that have been earmarked, but it seems to we get a bit of flurry of news, and then there's nothing that we hear for a while. Do you see a benefit or even a need for a UK-based spaceport? And if so, where do you think it'd be based?
So there's a very good leading question.
I'll do try.
Indeed. I think ultimately, yeah, I mean, you can't, I don't want to fall into the trap of, being like the CEO of IBM saying that, we might need three computers to the world's need, or Arthur C. Clarke, who felt that, 3 geostationary satellites would meet all our communications needs. This is a growing planet, and we have a growing industry as well, and opportunities to find new and better ways of doing everything. So I think it's absolutely right that we should pursue this and find good ways of having commercial competition in the space launch sector. Improving things, and so where that ends up as being, it's the UK government has really taken the view of not coming down and saying it's going to be this one or this one, which has, frustrated many of us in the industry who want to just let the choice go on. We have to live in the scenario that we are, and okay, that on the one hand it makes it harder, but actually on our journey with Goonhilly, every time the answer has come back as no, our approach has been to, well, okay, let's find a way around this, and usually looking back, having somebody say no to you has been a good thing, because it's made you think about how you can do it better. So, there's no secret that the size of the UK budget is tiny compared to other nations. And so having that limited budget makes you think harder about, how you can do things well. And so I think it will continue to be a fudge. I think there will be more than one spaceport, and I think there'll be more announcements soon on that as well.
Fantastic, excellent. Well, you touched on it at the beginning. You're an entrepreneur. love being in this industry and sort of highly thought of within the UK. What excites you still? What makes you get out of bed? Why do you do this?
Yeah, well, so the antenna behind me is communicating with Mars. That's pretty exciting. We're now the world's first private company to be providing a deep space communications service, and so that's pretty exciting to be able to do that and to have converted an old telecommunications antenna that was due to be demolished. And to convert that into a state-of-the-art deep space antenna that we're actually trusted to send commands to a deep space spacecraft 200 million kilometers away is quite awesome, I have to say. And hats off to the team. One of the joys of this is that I didn't lift a finger to do any of that work, but the team here have converted that antenna and have learned to operate it and have written all the procedures, and we work very closely with the European Space Agency, who have really been a fantastic help in doing this. And now to be able to provide that service and to have new employees who've come into the company and learned how to do that themselves. It's just fantastic to see how energized they are as well. So the next step for us now is we're designing a new series of antennas and antennas with broad capabilities to meet the growing lunar communications market and more deep space capabilities as well. So designing that. We've got most amazing antenna over on my right-hand side, a 30-meter dish with a super cooled receiver, which is one of the most sensitive instruments in Europe at the moment. And we've been doing space situational awareness work on that. So we've recently tracked the MEV-2 mission docking with the Intelsat 1002. And we're able to do that entirely passively, just from the signals bouncing off the spacecraft. So to have that capability here, and now starting to look at some of the signal processing that we can do to enhance that is very exciting.
Wonderful, excellent, and you can feel your passion, and full credit to yourself and the team for such an amazing job, and what an opportunity. So, okay, brilliant. So now, I mean, at neuco, we're always being asked to sort of find new talent and get them into the industry. So I'm going to pass you over to Ewan now, who wants to talk a little bit around sort of education and sort of attracting the next generation. So Ewan, over to you.
Thank you, Laurie. Yes, no, Ian, it's so fascinating, all of this. And as Laurie says, I want to discuss kind of the next generation. How do we attract them? How do we empower them? And a little personal story here, being from the West Country myself, traveling to Cornwall on holiday. I've visited Goonhilly a couple of times. I think I told you this before, but that was one of the key things that kind of kickstarted my passion and interest in the space industry anyway. But I'm wondering what Goonhilly is doing, more kind of actively, I suppose, to attract and then subsequently enable the next generation of experts in UK space.
Yeah, indeed. And as a child, I also visited Jodrell Bank, and one of the things they had at Jodrell was a small 3-meter antenna, but with a joystick in the visitor centre, and you could stand at the window with this joystick and move it around, and the dish out there would zoom around. And we soon discovered it had a radiometer. I didn't know it was called a radiometer at the time. But we then started zooming around trying to find the sun and then radio stars, and you could actually get some data off this thing. So I think it's really interesting that you're inspired by coming to Goonhilly as I was by going to Jodrell Bank. But one of the key things is, as well as inspiration, is aspiration, and the realization that there is a vibrant space industry in the UK and across Europe, of course, and that there are opportunities to get into the industry, and it's not just about engineering. But there are jobs across a really wide span of interests, from accounting, geography, anthropology. It really encompasses the whole of our sort of existence on the planet. So that's really quite interesting. In terms of specific things that we do, that we have a vast range of engagements, STEM engagements. Of course, COVID accepted in the last 18 months. We have a number of school visits that come here, and we've always got sort of primary and secondary school visits on the go. But we had a challenge right from the very get-go when we were only a handful of people, that we would get a lot of students wanting to come and do work experience here. And it's very difficult to commit to that as a company when we didn't know where we would be 1 week to the next. So I took the decision that we would either not do it at all, or we would do it properly. So we decided to do it properly, and we grounded all our engineers for a particular week, and we said, right, this is going to be STEM week. We basically opened the doors to 20 or 30 student cohorts at a time, and we ran a series of training courses essentially for this work experience week. And this then became a sort of regular feature that we've done every year. We've done twice a year for year 10 and year 12 students. And they're life-changing experiences for these students. We go full on with sort of degree level material, with no pressure of any exams or any tests, but just say that experience this and this is what it's like. But I think what they realise is that when you're in an education environment, it's you against the systems, you against the exams. Can you remember? But when you're in a work environment, you're working with colleagues who are all on the same team. And so I think this is one of the amazing eye-openers, that we can do some incredibly difficult things here, but there are always colleagues to support you and to work with. So that's been a really successful program. Then we have regular paid interns, so students at university. I've got a couple that have sort of been away and joined us. We've sponsored students at university, we've sponsored PhDs, and then we take part in an amazing program called the DARA project, which is working with 10 countries across Africa, where we go out and teach radio astronomy and entrepreneur and communication skills to physics graduates there, the best of whom then come back to the UK to a group of partner universities and do PhDs here, and then they'll come and do courses at Goonhilly and training here as well. And then ultimately they'll go back and become engineers or professors in their own countries again. So it's a big range of things.
That's wonderful. Especially that last one, fantastic. I love that. A lot more global. And I think, what you were talking about before as well. Goonhilly, really, from everything we've heard today, it's the past, it's the present, and is very much the future as well for UK space. It's always remained very relevant and engaged, which is fantastic. Pardon me. A follow-up question, actually, from Sarah Begum, which is a great one, on diversity within UK space, and she was wondering what the UK Space Agency and others might be doing to diversify the kind of people from various backgrounds, and then enable them to get involved in the space industry that best benefits their interest and skill set.
Yes, I think so. There has been, just in the last year actually, some the first tentative sort of studies on diversity within the sector, so that's great and it's really welcomed. there's a real interest within the sector in diversity. It's an educated sector, and it's a sector that recognises that the more diverse a workforce you can have, then the better the ideas and the better that the overall sector is. So that's good. In the report that I mentioned earlier, the size and the report that the size and effectiveness of the space sector. For the first time, the gender balance was reported. So I believe it's 30% females now, and I can tell you that's a significant improvement from where it used to be. And in fact, I talked about the two, the commercial satellite industry and then this exploration industry. I've attended conferences aimed at both of those sectors, and it's really stark that you go to the commercial satcom sector, and it's full of old grey-haired blokes like me, or blokes like me. Whereas you go to the new space conferences, and it's totally diverse and much younger cohorts of people, and it's fabulous. And we, it's great that new influx of people are sort of penetrating some of the old space, if you like. It's very, very much welcomed in the industry, and of course, young people come with new ideas as well.
Absolutely, and I think that's great, and I think diversity is such an interesting one anyway, because you have diversity of gender and race and opportunity and ideas, etc. And I think, as you say, 30% is good. There's more that needs to be done, but we are moving in a positive direction, and it's great to see. I know Sarah mentioned a point in the questions about representation on the front end, and I imagine that's something that we're going to see more and more of as we progress. Well, that's great, Ian. Thank you very much. I wanted to hand you back to Laurie now. I believe he's got a final question for you. To take it away, Laurie.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, fascinating, and Ian, thank you really for sort of giving us a bit of an overview, and just great to hear what Goonhilly are doing for the next generation. And I'm sure with the UK not being able to travel as much, Cornwall's going to be bombarded over the next 6 months, especially in the summer. So hopefully you'll be able to open it up for everybody again. So that should be coming. So my one final question really is, what one piece of advice would you give to somebody entering the industry?
Yeah, so take it a step at a time. Just do things. Be interested, and you can't expect that people will hand things on a plate. So take the steps yourself, and it's exactly what we've done here to build the business. We've built things up one step at a time. If you were trying to give somebody advice about how to write their CV, it's very difficult to do that, because there isn't a right or wrong format. But what you can do is just take opportunities when they arise, and that builds up your experience and your knowledge. And be interested in diverse things, and that comes across.
Great, fantastic, excellent. That's really good, really useful to hear from yourself. So, okay, Andrew, is there any sort of questions to the floor and stuff?
I think we've answered the ones from the Q&A, but hey, if there's anyone else who'd like to throw a question our way to put to Ian, look, please do so. Now's the time to do it.
Great. Well, I mean, Ian, we're sort of coming towards the end. So, I mean, it's been a real sort of pleasure to have you on the show. A big thank you to Torsten and SpaceWatch to allow us to host the first UK Space Cafe. And Ian, all the success for the future. It sounds like there's a lot to do, but really excited with some of the announcements. And really appreciate you.
Laurie, just to cut in, we've had another question. We've had another question from the Q&A. Ian, where do you see Goonhilly in the next 10 to 15 years?
Yeah, so global, first of all, and then diversifying even more. So one of the key things about the business in the first place, having an entrepreneur starting from scratch with no cash behind us and just a lot of ambition to do something, it was really important for us to diversify what we did here. And so we work with all sorts of different satellite operators, but we're very interested in moving into manufacturing here, so advanced engineering, particularly interested in supercooled receivers that we have installed on our Goonhilly 3 dish, and building more of those. And the technology in supercooled receivers that allow us to do deep space communications is the same technology that's involved in quantum computing, for example. So we see a sort of path down that road. I mentioned that this crossover between signal processing and AI and machine learning. So we're opening a space AI center here. And there we're particularly interested in sort of physics-led AI. So, there's a lot of store put in this idea of blind machine learning, where you give the computer thousands of examples of data set, and then it learns, or it modifies its algorithm to give you a machine learned AI. And I'm really starting to question whether that is an appropriate way of doing things when we know so much about the physical environment and we can write equations for things. So actually, coming from a digital signal processing point of view, we process data live as it comes in. It's not big data, it's the appropriate data for the communications. So I see really, when you're looking at how you automate a ground station, or how you get better data down from an Earth observation satellite, or how indeed you process that data, it's not necessarily about having vast data lakes of stored data, but it's about understanding the physical properties of what's going on the Earth, and then matching those physical properties to what you're seeing in the data. So I think there's lots that we can do around sort of pushing the envelope of the interlinking between signal processing and AI.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Laurie. Sorry for cutting you off there, but I thought important question, and it was great to hear Ian's thoughts on that.
Yeah, saved on the best to last. Any more questions?
That's it for the moment on the Q&A stuff, but again, I think we might still have a couple of minutes, so if anyone does want to ping a question through, but now is your final chance to do so.
We'll pass him over to Torsten now as well, because I know he's got some stuff to say, and don't forget to become a space watcher.
Thanks, Laurie. Thanks to you and Andrew.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Ian.
Hey, great show, guys. Great show. So sorry, the audience, something happened with Eventbrite today. So we try to find out what happened or what not happened, actually. So we've seen a number of emails did not went out for whatever reason. Maybe that's the internet problem you caused, Laurie, in your end. So that had this effect, butterfly effect and all of that. So, and if we get our next slide from our wonderful production team, then we can talk about what you guys can look forward to. So we have a number of more events planned for this month and of course next month. So after the Pentecost holiday, or what we hopefully all can celebrate next weekend, we will continue with the 33 minutes with Will Marshall. So, and you mentioned him before, or the company, Ian, before, are the CEO, co-founder of Planet, and I will talk with him about the importance of Earth observation for the European Green Deal. I think that's something what is of absolute importance for all of us, how we can use space technology here on Earth. And then 2 days later, I'm super thrilled to announce the next session of the Space Law Breakfast with Stephen Freeland. So we will demystify space law for the ones of us that are not space lawyers per se. So what was the impact of the tumbling re-entry, what we have seen, I think last week. So this time we have Jenny Tapio from Finland and Alexander Suchek in our wonderful cafe, and we chosen a Helsinki-based cafe to meet, of course, virtually. So this evening, on the 27th, we will continue with another edition of the Space Café in Balkan with the CEO of Endurosat. And on Friday the 28th, we will kick off our Space Café Spain in Spanish for those of us that speak that language. So, not me. On 1st of June, my guest will be Professor Thomas Schildknecht from the University in Bern, about the how can we protect the keyhole into the universe. So, very important talk about sustainability. And following this week, the Space Café Australia with another edition with wonderful Andy Handmore as the new host we could find for Australia, having Tim Pearson in the talk. And on Friday, the 4th, I'm challenging all of you that are speaking Russian with the next Space Café Russia with the wonderful Elena Morozova, having Viktor Strelets in the talk in Russian, talking about the application of frequencies at the ITU. So all these events are online on Eventbrite, and as always, we would like to hear your feedback, so please check in with us on Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Don't forget, sign up to our daily or bi-weekly newsletters, and if you like to treat yourself with something special, become a Space Watcher. Your support helps us. Take your credit card and visit our fan shop at shop.SpaceWatch.Global. It can be that easy. I know I repeat myself, but we really need your support to continue these wonderful events like this one today. So thank you all very much for your interest today, and thank you, Ian, and thank you guys from the entire neuco team for your great job and this inspiring talk, and yeah, being our guests. And Ian, I promise you, as soon as we can travel, I would love to visit your site. So that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, now seeing also the palms in the background flying, so you have potentially 30 degrees outside. Just the sun is not there, but that's at least my imagination I'm taking from this picture, and maybe also from the blurry camera we have there. However, I hope you all will stay safe and are healthy. Thanks for joining us. See you next week. In the meantime, visit our website and follow us on social media. And as Laurie said already, don't forget, become a Space Watcher. Thank you.